For example, see what it says, I know it's about other. Yeah, we have Jack, or I recall.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We got a couple here.
Trustee Cushman is,
Todd is different, I know what you got.
Trustee Cushman is on his way back from Albany. He had a meeting today and he's asked me to move along the Education Committee and hopefully he'll join us about 5:30 or 5:45 till 6. Before you get any further. Call the meeting order. Thank you. So let's move right along. The first thing we're going to do is review the February 5th, 2025 committee minutes. There's questions, comments, corrections? I see none. We'll move those minutes on to the full board for acceptance. And at this point, I'm going to make a small change in the agenda and I'm going to ask okay. Lost my train of thought there. Okay, so we're going to move the. Thanks, Beth. We're going to move the emeritus presentations right to the top of the list so that we can recognize our recipients.
Thank you very much. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Beth Johnson and I'm serving in the interim AVP of instruction role this semester. And as part of that role, I also chair the Emeritus Committee. And we had two wonderful nominees that were presented to us, and I'm very happy to present the resolutions and to offer a little bit of context and wonderful story about these great people, both of which I had the pleasure of working with over many, many years. So it's with great pleasure that I present from the committee, the Emeritus Professor Karen O'Donnell, who we would like to forward after a distinctive 33-year career at Finger Lakes Community College, beginning as an adjunct in 1986 and rising to full professor status in 1999. Professor O'Donnell leaves a legacy of educational excellence recognized by a 2004 SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching. Her impact far exceeds the classroom, where students consistently praised her engaging and respectful teaching style. She was a pillar of the Geneva Campus Center for many years. Professor O'Donnell pioneered online education by developing the College 101 for the SUNY Learning Network, way back when we began our legacy that's been carried on, amazing, led by Ryan McCabe, right? Our online learning offerings at the college are very robust and well respected. All the while maintaining a really high level of professional service to the college, to organizations outside the college, and also presenting at national conferences, which I had the joy of going to League of Innovations in Anaheim with Karen many years ago, which was I have fond memories of that time. Perhaps her most enduring contribution has been her voluntary mentorship of faculty, particularly transitioning from industry to academia, providing classroom observations, comprehensive support, developing teaching techniques. Her campus leadership was equally impressive, serving on numerous committees. She actually said to me right before that the Emeritus Committee was the only committee she didn't serve. Academic Senate, policies, sabbatical, promotion, right? Throughout her distinctive career, Professor O'Donnell embodied her favorite quote by Edward G. Buller-Lytton, which I may not have said that well. The best teacher is the one who suggests rather than dogmatizes and inspires his listener with the wish to teach himself. Her extraordinary commitment to teaching excellence, institutional service, and student success makes her eminently deserving of emeritus status. Vote on that resolution before the next one, or do you want both?
We'll vote on it. That's a little later.
Okay, okay. Additionally, we are, with profound respect, we posthumously present the Honorable Kathy Schwartz, for Merit's distinction following an exemplary 29-year career at Finger Lakes Community College. Serving as a senior clerk, Kathy balanced her college responsibilities while also serving as town justice for Gorham for 26 years after being a court clerk for 13 years. Commitment to professional development was evident. She earned a certificate from FLCC in criminal justice, regularly participated in continuing education, receiving the prestigious 2022 Soonley Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Classified Service. Kathy Schwartz's institutional impact has been immeasurable. She served numerous critical committees, curriculum assessment, academic senate, employee wellness, was the go-to person for colleagues, particularly around curriculum. I know myself, Ryan, Nancy Purdy, Milton Johnson, anybody in that third floor suite who needed an answer, Kathy was the person that you went to. She knew absolutely everything. She skillfully navigated the transition from good old CCFL to FLCC, continuously taking on additional responsibilities to support academic and student affairs. Perhaps one of her most significant contributions was her dedicated service to the CSEA union. She was recording secretary of the executive board and worked collaboratively during contract negotiations to balance union membership and the college. Throughout her career, Kathy consistently went beyond her job description, mentored employees, helped colleagues navigate workplace challenges, and contributed to institutional growth, embodying the qualities that we value most at FLCC. After her passing in September 23rd of 2024, the Kathy Schwartz Memorial Scholarship was established. To date, it has earned more than $2,500, and you're welcome to contribute. Way out. So we present Kathy Schwartz for emeritus distinction.
Thank you very much, Beth, for those heartfelt remarks. Professor O'Donnell, would you care to add a few remarks yourself?
Taught public speaking for 20 years as well, besides being a member of the humanities department, so I had a little something ready just in case. Very, very short. When I came to FLCC, which was then CCFL, almost 40 years ago now, I found my purpose. And I came to teach, but to be the best teacher that I could be. But I also came to understand that it was my role, it was my purpose to serve and support my department, to serve and support the college, and to serve and support the local community. Today, I feel very validated, humbled, and honored. Thank you.
Obviously, welcome to stay and participate in the rest of our meeting, or if you need to be on your way, we wish you the best.
Beyond my.
Ouch. So let's return to the regularly scheduled portion of the meeting. We'll have our enrollment report update. Dr. Lee.
Good afternoon, everybody. On this lovely pre-spring day.
Yes.
Coming. All right, so in your packet is the enrollment update as of February 21st. So I'm going to provide you with a verbal update reflecting this past Friday's numbers as of February 28th. So Overall enrollment excluding Gemini and non-credit state aidable is up 4.9% in headcount and 0.3% in FTE. When you include Gemini is down 50.6% in headcount and 59.4% in FTE. So total credit enrollment, including Gemini, is down 16.3% headcount and 15% in FTE. However, I want to remind folks that beginning this academic year, all enrollments for Gemini courses taught over the full academic year are counted towards fall enrollment instead of spring enrollment. Just a reminder about that. So before this academic year, full year Gemini courses were counted towards spring enrollment. So this was a shift. Therefore, in the fall 24, there were more Gemini students and average Gemini credits compared to prior years. Specifically, we had a 19% increase in headcount and a 19.1 increase in average credits. And so overall, total enrollment, including all credit enrollment and then non-credit state aidable, is down 18% in headcount and down 15.4% in FTE. The one-stop center is also still processing Gemini registrations. Earlier this week, they had approximately 500 registrations in the queue to be processed. And the deadline for registration submission is Friday, March 6th. So stay tuned. Next month, we'll show a more accurate picture. So are there any questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burbank. Thank you. Let's move along to our presentation on student success, supporting online coaching at SUNY, exploring academic and learning outcomes for online students. And we have Rugen, Ryan McCabe. So,
There you go.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I wanted to talk a little bit about this study that we did with SUNY, a few other SUNY institutions. As you may remember, we were part of a SUNY program called SUNY Online Degrees at Scale, where we had, I think it was 5 of our degree programs and certificates were involved, and we did very well on the enrollment side. And when the interim chancellor decided to cancel that program, MDRC, this company came to us and wanted to hear a little bit about coaching for online students, how we were continuing that coaching. And so they came to FLCC, they interviewed some of our students, they interviewed some of our faculty and staff. And so we got some really great information that we just wanted to share with you. This is the basic agenda. I won't read them all, but we'll get to all of it. So just understanding our online learners, roughly 50% of our FTE at the college are taking online courses, with around 72% taking at least one online course, which, as you'll see a little bit later, is significantly higher than most of our peer institutions. And that could be because of our offerings. But also it seems that students post-COVID really just enjoy taking things in the online space, specifically adults seem to like the flexibility that comes with online learning. In general, there's a lower persistence rate and retention rate than in-person courses. It is easier, I think, in some ways to just disappear online. And so we do see that, but the gap around persistence used to be, and I've presented this group before, it used to be around 17%, and now it's about 9%, the difference between persistence in a face-to-face course versus an online course. And then there's kind of limited research available to inform support for online learners. So if you search for journal articles or academic information around what the best way to support online learners is, there's not a ton out there. You would think there would be, because online learning has been pretty significant now for almost 30 years. Well, started around 30 years ago, roughly. But we have some research that's coming out, and this study kind of helps us gain a little bit of context into our learners, what they need and what they have concerns with, and how we can assist them. When we talk about our online learners, this is kind of how we break it out. It can be students who take all their courses online, one course online, or students who take hybrid courses or high flex courses where some of their coursework is in the online space. SUNY does not have a single definition of what an online learner is. They have a single definition of what an online course is, but not an online learner. So in our case, that 72%, we're calling them online learners because they're taking at least one class in that space. Jeffrey?
Sure. Ryan's very good at this. I'm new at it, so bear with me. I'm Jeff Dune. I'm the Assistant Director of Online Learning. I'm excited to be here to talk more about the MDRC study and how it's just kind of brought some really interesting information up as far as our own offerings here for support of online students. Why online learning matters? Like Ryan said, 72% of our enrollment focuses or is involved in online learning in some way, and that is something that can't be ignored. And is very there's a lot of opportunity for students to connect to this campus in ways that they couldn't before, right? With that online learning option, that flexibility that Ryan spoke about, though it is beneficial for adults, we see so many students who rely on this type of learning to advance themselves in ways that they would not be able to if they had to come brick and mortar. So my little spiel aside, let's talk a little more about the program itself. I've got this. I've used computers before. Perfect. Yes. So this quote was very illustrative for me. Comes from one of our students who was part of the survey, part of the surveying process, and actually I believe this came from one of the focus groups specifically. The line that's out to me may be obvious, as it's bolded and underlined, but this student felt as that they were living off the grid, which is, in my mind, very ironic as an online learner. They're very much on the grid to learn. However, right, this is a lack of connection. This is a distance they feel, a gap between the institution, their faculty, and really any person, right? This is a huge opportunity we saw to connect with these kinds of students in many different ways. And this is not to speak anything of our in-person or our PACE and other coaching models you see. We'll hear the word coaching come up a lot. This is talking about our specific support we have for online people that work with the one person, spoiler alert, one person that works with our online group specifically. So the context of the MDRC study is this was a partnership with SUNY to, like Ryan said, expand on what had happened after the end of the Degrees at Scale program from SUNY. And this, once it decentralized, there was a coaching model that was in place that was competitive with a lot of the for-profits. But once that decentralized, it went back to business as usual for campuses, but there was still this increased need. Now SUNY wanted a chance to see what happened with that current campus model, now that we've moved on past Degrees at Scale. And that was the impetus for this, and it was interesting, the timing for us specifically on campus, because we had just transitioned out of our last student support person who was involved in the Degrees at Scale initiative as one of the coaches. And so we were very much starting fresh for us. Again, a quick look at the enrollments. Again, this, as Ryan said, is indicative of all of SUNY. We in the community college bracket fall much higher than our peers do. As you can see, that exclusively online is 15% in fall of 23. We're closer to 40%. If you look at some online, that's Ryan's, I believe he said 72%, right? We are heads and bounds ahead of the average for online and for community colleges. You can see we're high above a lot of the other comprehensives and other types of colleges as well. I wanted to speak again a little bit about the peers we were working with in this study. So obviously it was led by SUNY, but it was ourselves, it was Plattsburgh and Alfred State. We looked comprehensively at our online offering, the whole program. How many students we have taking at least one online course. Plattsburgh and Alfred State took a different approach, and I got to hear some really interesting takeaways from them. They focused on one program with 2 coaches in that program, specifically at Plattsburgh. We talked to one of their coaches who's involved in their graduate level accounting program. And it was her for that whole program. And it was, again, fascinating to see the differences in what they can offer, though there is some parity for sure of what we could offer here. And just, again, to bring it back to us, I want to paint an inverted pyramid for you, if you will. 33 of our programs are either online or hybrid, with a roughly 2,471 students enrolled in those programs, and we have one online coach. Brooke Napoleon is our coach, and she is a phenomenal asset to the college. She's been spending a lot of time working on specific messaging for online students, building up supports through all of our student life offerings and connecting them to many other programs inside of our, again, many programs that we won't expect one-for-one parity, but very close parity to what an in-person student would come in if they saw the one stop. That is what Brooke is for our students. And we are constantly working with her, and myself are working to find ways to be more innovative and connect with students, be proactive. Again, something that we saw very important from this survey. And yes, so comparatively, these are the facts that came out from community college, from our college. The program, the online program, is open to any student. What context for that is that, like I said, we surveyed all of the students that at least have one full online class. So if they are enrolled in our student group, which includes online student group, which includes all students, in at least one online class, they were available to participate in the survey and the focus groups. We have a lot of flexible approaches to how we communicate with our students. Primarily, we've heard from students that Brightspace is a main point of contact for our online students. So we not only use that platform to reach out to our students, but we also are very much kind of the protectors of that space. We keep an eye on what comes out from Brightspace to make sure students aren't overwhelmed. We keep an eye on that. And again, primarily what Brooke is doing and what we're doing through the office is providing information for those students, keeping them kind of up to date, as it were, what's going on. For the study itself, the research questions, again, I won't read through them, but MDRC is very much focused on what is the impact of coaching? What makes this valuable? What difference do we have from the outcomes, from the student learning outcomes, all the way to just the general student experience? And so yes, again, this survey, this study, it was very broad in the student experience, but because we're so focused on online, we got some really interesting data back based on these questions. So this was the overview of our project. It started with an interview with Brooke. Then we broke out, then we had student focus groups, a student survey that went out again through our Brightspace information. We had really good turnout for that survey. I believe about 10% return for that survey. So a good amount of data. And then it was, meeting about weekly with MDRC to talk about the data as coming in and as it was being aggregated. I do want to shout out Karen Fisher and her team at APCI. Was incredibly supportive of this initiative, maybe at the last minute at some points, and I'm just very grateful for them to help us interact with SUNY in this way. And then dissemination, I actually, before I pass it back to Ryan in a moment, we actually invited a lot of our student experience and student services leaders to come to that presentation to hear from online students what they're experiencing. Again, Student Life, Jenny Earl, Andrea Brown, Sarah Whiffen have done really unique and great things to reach out, but we never really get that feedback loop. And this was a really good opportunity to do that. And we had some really good discussions based on that. So I will, on that note, pass it back to Ryan to talk more about the findings.
Is it annoying having your boss stand behind you.
Yes.
Um,
Bosses surrounding.
So what we learned is that, we have a lot of work to do. There are different approaches across different institutions. We are in a great place in that we were the first SUNY campus to have a coach. And so we just need to kind of continue to evolve that process and make sure that students are getting exactly what they need when they need it. We don't want students to feel like they're off the grid. We want them to feel like they're part of this institution and an important part of this institution. And there's various things we can do and have done over the years to try to make that more apparent. But there's, as you can tell from this, there's still work to be done. This is quite the quote, but I'm not going to read it, but you can kind of take a look at that. But basically, this is from Brooke. Who she helps, what kind of questions they're asking, what support they need, and so on. And then this is a quick look at some of the survey data that we had. Basically, we can, none of this is surprising. You know, we need to do a better job of providing for students' overall well-being, which we've primarily been focused on academics, and so that was a great little nugget. They want to hear more from their faculty, and also provided, they kind of were expecting their coach to provide academic support, which really isn't what they do. They kind of direct them to the academic supports. And so what this could look like in practice is a more tailored support model, depending maybe on your program or the cohort that you're in, gender, age, things along those lines. But we haven't really decided what that may look like. Really understand the academic and personal challenges, and then upping the amount of communication that we're having with these students. I'm just gonna keep going.
Go for it. Yeah.
So again, increased interaction and connection with their peers is another thing that they're looking for. Some students had a kind of a limited experience with their coach, which is surprising because the coach is constantly sending messages, just as students either aren't reading them or aren't responding. So we need to figure out what the best method of communication is as we move forward. And this kind of talks about, you know, some of the anxiety that students feel. The student felt they didn't interact with their classmates or professors, and, you know, Brooke kind of was just like, it's okay, we're here to talk, we'll figure it out. But we kind of need to, that message should go a little bit further when they're mentioning something like anxiety, like what other support can we give you? What do we have on our campus that can help you have less anxiety, to help you do a little bit better, put a little bit more into your courses, and how we can best assist. Students weren't aware that coaching existed, which again seems crazy because Brooke sends out messages probably at least 1 or 2 a week, letting students know registration deadlines, midterm deadlines, all of those kind of things, just general support, like go get them kind of messages. So very surprising that some students didn't know about it. But it just kind of tells you that our students aren't necessarily looking where we're sending them the information. So we have some work to do on it. So again, very telling. Do you know how to contact your student success coach? And again, this is only for online. This doesn't involve PACE at all. Basically 50-50. And they're receiving, you know, over the course of the semester, probably 25 emails from this person, but only 50% of them know who that person is. In practice, we need to work on marketing. We need to work on information sharing, creating more of a culture of care as opposed to just kind of those check-ins, making sure that we're really providing holistic support for these students. And then working on personalized outreach, which, you know, we can do with some of the technology that exists. I think we are way over on time, so I'm just going to kind of skip forward here. The one thing that I thought this quote was very telling, this student felt that faculty gave more work because if a student was taking in the online space, that somehow they were lesser of a student and needed to prove themselves that they were a good student, which is a really interesting element. And there is, that's not uncommon. I've heard that before from the students. And, you know, this is a great quote about virtual meetings where they got a chance to interact with their professor one-to-one in real time, and how important that was to the student and how it helped them kind of set the stage to be successful in their course. And that's something we push for all of our courses. And again, I talked a little bit about, you know, that interaction with instructors, responsiveness of instructors. really the most important things to students on that list. And so it's a thing that we just need to kind of keep hammering home with instructors to make sure that we're being responsive and that we are having more interaction, not less. And then I'm just going to skip forward because I know we're totally out of time. Discussion, any questions that we can answer? Sorry about the time.
I just think the personalized check-in is really, really critical to all the data that you showed there. That's really what's right. That's what's behind a lot of the frustration and a lot of the confusion and the navigation. That professor check-in with students, whether it's in a small group or one-on-one, should really be, in my opinion, a required component of that online course. It really makes all the difference in the world. I've seen it firsthand through family members who have been online with universities and at the graduate level as well as the undergraduate level. So I think that's a really, really critical component. And I know that sometimes, depending upon the persona of the professor, there might be an aversion to it or which you would hope would be to make a conversion to it. And some people are just naturally good at checking in. Probably a high correlation between in-person and online in terms of that check-in. You know, because you could be in person, but also have, substantial difference and substantial lack of relationship between that professor and that student. So just an observation.
No,
I love the work. I absolutely love this.
you're 100% on target. A good teacher is probably going to be a good teacher in either space and communicate well in either space. We generally have found that to be true. Occasionally, it's not, but for the most part, it's true.
I really appreciate the fact that you really are open with your data too. So that's what helps these programs grow, and keep sharing that kind of stuff with us, because this is really, I think it's really critical to the future of the institution.
Yes, most certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ryan and Jeff.
Thanks so much.
Going to move on to resolutions now, and let's take the first one for the
Okay, so we have two positions. The first one is the Assistant Director of Development. So this job description was updated to reflect current duties with the upcoming retirement of Margaret Lorenzetti. The revised college-funded position remains within Group B of the Professional Association. The second position is the Technology Support Specialist. So these were two separate job descriptions that were combined into one position description to better suit the needs of the college with regard to technology support. It will allow all people in this job title to work both Apple technology and desktop technology. This revised college-funded position remains within Group D of the Professional Association.
questions. Is the technology support specialist, is that position filled right now? We're just combining it?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Bear with me.
I have visuals.
This came to be a long presentation.
You may recall I was myself, Sarah Zard, and Kim Evansdane presented April through August Title IX changes, and that was our work. And then in January 9th, this came out. And it said, forget all of that work. You're back to 2020. And so as of February 4th, we are back to 2020. So the resolution that you have in front of you is to readopt the 2020 Title IX document. Our non-discrimination and our student code of conduct will be shortly following, but given that they do already encompass all of the materials that are now no longer covered in Title IX, we feel we are confident we don't need to bring them yet. We will bring them as, throughout the traditional cadence that we do those two with. But that is why I am here.
Questions, comments? Thank you for all of that work.
Absolutely.
Dr. Ortiz, oh, I see you're
I'm
on.
en route, yes. Thank you, good evening.
Good evening.
The resolution that you have before you this evening is related to an appointment of Jennifer Dunn that was inadvertently left off the December list of appointments. So Jennifer is our new 12-month instructor of nursing LPN program coordinator. And I think she started on July 29th, and I just think somehow she didn't get added to that list because all of our other faculty are 10 months. So needless to say, I am asking that the board consider the reappointment of Jennifer Dunn for the upcoming academic year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Already had our emeritus presentations. Thank you, Beth. Moving on to the strategic thought presentation. 23-24 Association and Association Housing Audit Highlights. Hello, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. We'll get the presentation up here. So for those who don't know, I'm Lindsay Chamberlain-Zeller. I'm the executive director of the association and serve as a fiduciary agent for the student corporation. So with those two action items, I do oversee their audit. So we'll review those for FY. Yep. So good. I cannot explain any of this up here right now. There we go. I need numbers. All right, perfect. Thank you so much. No, you're fine. All right, so diving in, this is looking at last year's financials. So please remember, this is not our current situation. This is last year's situation. Yeah, okay. See if I can work this. Okay, now, okay, now. All right, perfect. All right, so first looking at the different units in the association, we're gonna start off with athletics. You can see a breakdown right now of the revenue and expenses. It came out to a total net income of 52,000 in the red, meaning it was not the best year for athletics, but we did have a few different items happening. One thing is we had a bunch of teams go to national tournaments. National tournaments can cost around $10,000 for a team to go. So that was one significant factor. We also had a little bit of overspending in some of our budget lines with a few of the teams. Since then, we've talked to some coaches, we put more policies in order, we worked on a handbook. So I think we've made great turnaround in the overspending from the previous year, but it is something we need to be mindful of this year. So looking at that 52,000, the year before we were 16,000, which means the last 2 years we have finished in the red for athletics. So this is something I really want our director of athletics to be mindful of as we move forward. Then going to boosters, which is the fundraising aspect of athletics. The revenue was around 58,862 with total expenses 73,339. So they came up in the red again by 14,477. The previous year they were in the black by 12,258. So some of that overspending again was from coaches, others from national tournaments. So those two factors really led to athletics spending more money than budgeted for that year. Moving to auxiliary services, our total revenue was $568,801. I do put a little note up there that we do the total other income. This is a little bit weird because it's the yearly income from housing. As a disregarded entity, we do have to put this on our books, but it's not money we actually get for this department. So please be mindful, we're not as rich as this slide makes us look. I wish we were, but we're not. So total expenses were $763,178 with a total net income of $775,769. This is lower from last year where we had a little bit over $1 million. And really the difference there was the gain on investment from housing. So you can see those numbers. Moving on to childcare, our total revenue was $531,895. And our total expense was $552,872. So our net income was $28,624 in the red. This is mostly because we did renovations to the childcare center. That building's 30 years old and was not ever renovated. So with that in mind, there is a few things that are starting to go in that center. We're seeing that we need more repairs to our HVAC system because for New York State, you have to keep it warm for children. So a 30-year-old HVAC system does cost a little bit of money. We're lucky enough to be partners with the foundation who are helping us find grants and other fundraising activities. So that is becoming a huge part of our activity with strategic planning of how we're going to keep the center up and running. You can see from the prior year, our comparison, we were 6,000 in the black. So hopefully we'll keep trending back to where we were before. But with renovations, we do need to be mindful of what's needed to keep the center open. And then wrapping up with association housing, our total revenue was just over 3 million, total expenses 1.6 million, with a total net income of 797,131. You can see a little asterisk there for the loss of interest rate swap. That is made up on numbers again. We don't really get that money. It's the swap on our bond agreement. So we were at a net loss of 107,000, which means our adjusted net income was 689,302 compared to the prior year of 805,465 because we didn't lose on the swap the prior year. We actually had a gain on the swap, and this year was a loss on the swap. It's just the way the market rolls. So then consolidating all of the financials for the association, you can see for FY24 this year, we came out around 680,346 compared to the prior year was just over $1 million. And again, the largest factor between the two years is the gain loss on the interest rate swap. So that bond swap. The good news though is with our cash, looking at that, we are up in our cash amounts. So one big difference is we had a new housing system implemented. So we changed our way how we're holding cash for security deposits, which means we don't have as much restricted cash on hand because of that new system we implemented, which is good. And then to wrap up the association, just focusing a little bit what we're doing for student success. So we are researching a new ID card system to help with that student success. You know, maybe find a system where students can use their IDs for more things on campus would be beneficial. We're exploring virtual bookstore companies that keep prices down. We've started to reorg housing a little bit more with 2 live-in resident directors. So we have 2 full-time staff in the suites for any emergencies or programming. We've also looked at the programming model to make sure our students are getting all the resources necessary. We've increased peer interactions with our RAs, the resident assistants, through health and safety and occupancy checks. So it's not just, hey, you moved in, see you at the end of the year. We're actually checking up on them multiple times through the year to make sure, how are you doing? What do you need help with? Where can we direct you to? So this has really helped our students feel more safe and welcomed into our community. And then we have improved collaborations with the college and the association. So as 2 separate entities, we're moving more towards this path that everyone here is an FLCC student. How do we help them? Not you're on association property, you're on college property, but instead there are students. So what do we put in place to help them? And then lastly, we did the fall 2024 housing survey. We do this every year and we did get really positive response back from the students that they are feeling heard, that they're seeing the changes happening and that they do like living in the suites at this point. So that's really good to know because in the past that was not the data we've gotten back. So I'm happy to see that. So moving to student corporations audit for 23-24. Sorry, this is a little blurry, copied and pasted over. You can look here that we're going to compare the assets and liabilities. So for both assets and liabilities, we had lower numbers than previous years. So what that means is we're bringing in less money, but we're also spending as well. So you can kind of see comparison here of FY twenty-four was 542,486. The previous year, 706,894. We also looked at change at assets. So one thing that changed this year was student fees. Is in the past, the college was just collecting student fees and then transferring over what they assumed the number of student fees was based on enrollment. Now we're getting student fees based on who's actually paid their bills. So in the end, it's not actually hurting the college. It's kind of more of an accurate number of, we can't just base it on enrollment. We have to see who actually is paying their bills without that. So with that, it did bring the revenue down, but it's actually more accurate. Expenses were higher, so that does decrease in net assets from start to end in the beginning of the year. So less revenue, more spending. It does make a big difference at the end of the year with that. For designated assets, this is one area that our auditors really want us to look at, and it's something they did communicate to the student corp last week at the board meeting, is that the student corporation needs to be aware of their board designated assets. Right now, they are promising out more money than they actually have in their account, so we're having a little bit of an issue in making sure that our operational expenses and board designated assets are not overlapping. With that in mind, I've talked to some of the board leadership for student corporation, and I think we're gonna start making proper initiatives to make sure we're tracking what resolutions are out there that they're promising revenue for, and then making sure that revenue isn't overlapping with our operational budget. Lastly, with cash flows, FY twenty-four had a decrease in cash flows from the previous year, so you can kind of see how that was significantly higher. So that's something we need to be mindful again. But again, remember the student fees did change that process, so it's a little bit more accurate. So that's one reason why. And that's it for the audit, for both audits. Any questions? Yes.
Don Mahalik. I'm curious to know what you were looking for when you talk about looking at virtual textbooks. So what is your goal?
Yeah. So with the bookstore industry, a lot of colleges are moving away from just the book store being a physical location on campus and just having more spiritware on campus. So with virtual bookstores, it would be a virtual company sending books right to a student's house and not actually having a footprint on campus. We'd still have a campus store, so you could still go in there and buy snacks, FLCC clothing, materials that you might need, like notebooks or whatnot, but getting your actual textbooks would be an all online process. So ordering online, receiving online, getting them shipped right to your house.
And what are you looking for in a company?
So I think our biggest thing was decreasing textbook prices. So if we can cut out the middleman of having them on campus, making sure the cost is significantly lower for our students. That's our biggest goal right now, is making sure it's an affordable process.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Additional questions? Fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See, Trustee Cushman got here in time for adjournment.
Perfect timing.
Would you like to offer that up for adjournment? I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Who's first?
Trustee Mike, seconded by Trustee Geis. All fair?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Russell. A little bumpy at the start. That's good. Trustee Hassel, financial.
Yes. Thank you. Trustee Martin is necessarily absent, so he asked me to chair the committee, so I'll call the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting to order. First item is to review the minutes from the meeting. Any comments or questions about that? If not, we'll do a monthly review of the operating budget and finance report. Jason?
Sure, give it up.
So these are results as of January. We'll start off with revenues. Tuition is up from the prior year. It does show about $1 million difference there. Some of that is driven by the fall increase in our Gemini students, so some of this will level out as we get through February and March. February results, we were about flat with revenue, but with Carol's report earlier, we were actually behind in our Gemini registrations and processing them through the system. So March will be a better results number. So when I come back in, say it'll be May, and give March results, we'll have a better number there. So the other thing that we will have is we'll have our summer enrollment. We budgeted about 1.7 million there, so we should be ahead in tuition as we go through the remainder of the year. Fees will continue, we'll have an increase there, again, as we continue processing our Gemini enrollments. Most of this is driven by our fall increase that we saw in enrollment. State aid, we did our second quarter payment in January, and sponsor contribution will receive those funds this month, in March. So. And miscellaneous revenue, we're up there, mainly driven, we did get a payment earlier from the association for rent of the office space they have compared to last year, as well as interest earnings that we've made through our cash CDs with Canandaigua. So as far as expenses, in line with budget, and supply and expense, that's up right now because of our Gemini enrollments from the fall compared to last year. Questions? Yes, Tom.
Jason, could you refresh my memory where the grant money is?
Grant money is not reported.
Is not reported in.
Just our.
We're not.
Yep.
Okay.
I can, in maybe quarterly basis, bring kind of the grant, where we are from revenue and expenses there, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, we've got some resolutions. The first one is to extend a contract for support services. And right there.
Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
Was that a question or are you just saying get up?
No, that was a question. Didn't see it.
You have a resolution from IT and for an extension of the colleague, Lucian contract for consultants. We want to keep them on to the end of August to continue adjusting different aspects of our colleague system. Sarah said earlier how we were going back to 2020. There are adjustments in that. There are additional financial aid changes. State reporting for what we call CIRIS is changing. So we have a request to keep a consultant in to help us with all that development. They've also been doing a lot of work for prepping us to do some major upgrades, which is a good thing for us. And they've done a phenomenal job with the help of the HR team, the finance team. We have some phenomenal best practice and documentation now. We talked about this at the cabinet last week. If someone were to come new for HR or finance, I believe we'd be in really good shape to help them get started. Where a year and a half ago, we had a lot of change. It was not the case. So I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Thanks very much. On the, it being that time of the year, the audit committee has been working with the college and the auditor to put together a auditor's report. And with that, I'll let Jason address that and summarize it.
Yeah, so Randy Shepard, who is the partner on the engagement, he's also on the screen. But I can give a quick highlight, and then if there's questions, or Randy, if you want to jump in, I'm more than happy to have you speak to it as well. So this year, we do have a clean opinion, no findings, related to the financial statement audit. There will be a finding in our single audit, which will be issued next week. We reviewed the management letter with audit ERM, so this is just the required communications from Bon and Dio on February 17th. We will be issuing the financial statements at the end of this week, and posting on our website. And then, as I said, the single audit will be issued next week and filed with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. Overall, the college had an increase in our net position of net assets, about 2.1 million overall. Cash position on the balance sheet sitting at 18.5 as of 8/31. So pretty healthy result from last year. A lot of that was because of our increase in enrollment. We also had a lot of infrastructure additions into the financial statements that helped to balance and add to our net position in the prior year. So, Randy, anything else to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the financials fine. I just wanted to kind of acknowledge and thank you and your staff and your team for helping us get the audit completed. As everyone that's involved knows, it's, we've had a couple rough years, and each year has continued to get better with Jason and Rich and folks and staff, and I've appreciated the committee's guidance as well as we work through this together. So again, I just appreciate all that, and thank you.
Any comments or questions?
Just congratulations on a clean management letter.
Thank you.
Okay. Randy, thanks for making an appearance.
My pleasure. Thank you for letting me be remote.
Okay. Next item is a short-term contract.
Yeah, so this is a short-term contract for transcription services within the classroom. We had a contract with Vital Signs, just looking for this to extend through August 9th under a short-term contract, and then we'll issue a formal RFP come the summer.
Okay. Any comments or questions about that? Okay, if not, do you want to review the informational items?
Yep, the first informational item is these are transcript ordering, so your college transcripts. This was through Parchment. They got absorbed by Structure. So this is all electronic now versus having our register issue the transcripts, hard copies. So this is a service that is actually a contract through SUNY that we have signed on with. So.
Okay, any comments, questions? Not the transfer report?
And then the budget transfer report is just moving funds within the department to the right object group.
Okay. Questions? If not, that completes the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Ready? Well. This first. Well. Those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, trustee. I'd like to call the board of trustees meeting for March 5th, 2025 order. Is there anyone that would like to speak or ask any questions?
Yes, I would. Do I just go up to the?
Yes, please.
So, hello, many of you already know me. I'm Dom, I'm Student Corporation President. I'm here today to show you the new design of I know we all know about the bronze flick statue that we've been kind of work in progress for many years now. And due to how confusing and difficult the first process was with not knowing a lot of, because we found out that there was more acquisition policy, there was things that Student Corp wasn't kind of aware of, and the process kind of got a little hectic. So we are kind of trying to drop that one and restart fresh with all the knowledge that we kind of have now. And with that comes a new design that we will be presenting to marketing. So I wanted to make sure you guys also seen it.
Yeah.
Have limited copies.
Of course. I can say.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, no, I emailed them. Yeah, sorry. Just one actual one for that.
More like most of.
One of the biggest reasons for the new design, I actually took a few hours over the weekend to make this full mock-up. Shout out to my degree from FLCC in graphic design. But the thing with this one is there was complaints about the first design or the other design that we had. It wasn't to the real likeness of the logo design of the mascot. So this one, I actually took comp of what the old logo actually looked like, scaled it up, and turned it into something that is actually coming in and out of the ground. So that's kind of where we're going with this one. We're hoping that marketing has some good feedback for us, so then we can go through our acquisition policy again and finally get a spot for this. Any questions? Yes.
I love the creativity of this. What has anyone asked you about safety concerns? It looks very pointy. I'm just thinking of a small child killing themselves on a tail or something.
Well, with the previous design that we had, there was a feedback concern about the teeth and a sense of it didn't really look like the teeth of the lake monsters. So I took that into consideration and actually I just blew the head of the logo really big and I traced along the lines of the actual teeth. So the teeth are exactly how it looks like in the logo. But we could round off the teeth in a way that it's not too pointy.
I think it's more that tail.
Oh.
That.
Gotcha.
That somebody small might.
Gotcha.
Decide to, I don't know, impale themselves on.
Yeah, no, of course. Once we talk to marketing, and definitely get all their feedback when we actually, because we're still working with the same company as before. So once we talk to them, we can voice those concerns and see what they can do and what they suggest as far as making it a little bit more safe, for sure.
Just one suggestion. The master's a lake master, correct? Water master. Shouldn't this be blue down here?
The base?
Yeah.
Oh, that was just to show you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not a finished product at all. But we want to, again, it's gonna be in concrete and there was thoughts and people talking about how we can paint the concrete or whatever it is to make that all water.
You just mix the paint right in with the concrete.
Yeah.
It's easy to sweaty. Yeah.
Yes. Any other questions?
Seems a little harsh.
Which one?
It seems a little, on first blush, it seems, I'm not an art critic.
No, that's okay.
It just seems a little, it seems a little aggressive.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I definitely get that. There was, when we had the other design, there was concerns about the jaw line. It was too smooth. So for this one, again, I made sure that it looked exactly like our, because that concern actually came from marketing. It looked too much like a snake instead of like a lake monster. So with this.
So this is not free art. This is a replication process.
Yeah.
It does look mean.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, but when we look at our logo is an aggressive lake monster. So, I mean, I definitely understand, and it could definitely change. It's just when we brought that original design to marketing, those were the concerns. So I addressed those concerns and made it this way.
I like it. I like the idea that when opposing teams come in here to compete with our athletes, we mean business.
We mean business.
Yeah.
If I may say something, Dom worked very hard on this, and the point of this design is to have an idea where students can voice their opinions and actually vote on this, whereas the original design was more of just giving to someone, come up with what you can. And this way, the students are in control of this process rather than just putting something out there.
Yeah, thanks for all of it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone on the phone? Okay, thank you. I've got a motion to approve the consent agenda minutes and resolutions.
This is trustee guys, I move.
A second,
Second.
trustee Cushman, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Any old business? New business? Okay, Dr. Knight.
I just want to remind board that we should be bringing to the board the recommendations from the strategic Board of Trustees strategic plan recommendations in April. A lot of great work has been going on with the 2+2 committee, and just wanted to let you know that that's coming up for your review. Also wanted to talk about the federal government and dear colleague letter that went out. We received a document late Friday that sort of softened the words and what's going on, and it scopes much more readily for us to continue doing most of what we would do, which means that we don't have as much concern for the moment about federal funding at this point in time based on the SARE, but we still have to continue the inventory that we're doing, and then wait to see what comes out after that. All that was so you went from a dear colleague letter from originally what was put out from the executive body to a set of facts, FAQs, but next will come guidance, and that's where we'll know exactly where we stand for the future. But it doesn't look as bad as it was, and the language has been softened tremendously. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight to you that we have a great speaker for commencement, Judge LaToya Lee, class of 2003, will be our commencement speaker, and we're excited to have her here. If you have your most recent Laker magazine, she is on the cover of the magazine. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Trustee Hall.
Only thing to report is with the next few weeks, Student Corp is gearing up to start their election process soon. So with that in mind, trying to work with the candidates for student trustees to understand what the role of student trustee is. And then hopefully with the election, we're able to get good applicants, and then they're able to actually shadow in on some Board of Trustees meetings.
That would be happy to have them.
Very good.
Thank you. Trustee Estes.
Can we just reappoint you?
Yeah, we just wrapped up the audit, so that's been the main activity recently.
Trustee Mahala, Board Development.
Board Development, Steve and I had a very productive 2-hour session. Thank you so much to Penny for working with Steve. Our executive secretary to the board at the time, Karen Hopkins, had done a very good job of documenting the processes that we used for presidential search. And as I've mentioned before, this is a proactive, down the road when we need to go through this process again. We do not want to repeat what happened the last time, which is the board had nothing in writing that said how we were to proceed. We had one paragraph that had been voted on by the Board of Trustees that just addressed a tiny sliver of what the big picture was. And we've broken it down into certain categories. Steve has pulled all of those materials manually and put them in chronological order. We went through everything. We remembered things that we had forgotten from the previous years, 10 years ago now. And the goal is to keep those documents as reference supplemental materials for a very brief policy, but the policy would spell out what we feel is the best practice for FLCC going forward based on past experience, both of the most recent search, but also input from previous trustees about the previous boards. So it's the two input from the two prior presidential evaluation searches. So that's one thing that we'd like to bring to the April meeting is to have you take a look. That we'll get you the information before that, because we want to have the whole board look at it. But we will need a meeting, Penny, if you would be able to find a date when everyone could be there for the board development committee, especially Don and Joan, who have been through the last search, so that we can have input about where we want to take this and things that we may have forgotten. The second, and just so that you know, we found many things that we were very happy with, but we also had a few recommendations. Steve had one big one that he wanted to make, and then I had a few. So we'd certainly want to have a good discussion about that. The second thing is that April is Community College Month, and I'm hoping that FLCC is going to be doing something for Community College Month. Also in April, NYCCT is hosting its awards. We have talked about the Board Development Committee perhaps looking at nominations for that. So that would be a second item on the agenda, would be to talk about submitting awards for the state association.
Thank you, Donna. I was unable to attend the association meeting. Foundation.
Fitness and Valentine's, as I told you before, sold out. And everybody's working very hard on that. And Bree, has any decision been made about the golf tournament, or should we just wait until the movie is over?
Yes.
Which might be easier.
Did make an update. We are changing the location of our golf tournament from Ravenwood and Victor to the Canandaigua Country Club. The date will also change. I believe it's May. It's in May instead of June. I'll update you all on the exact date.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Whitman, NYCCT.
But a couple of things. One, in the spring, we do have a conference that will be at Mohawk Valley. I've received an invitation for it. What I'd like to draw everyone's attention to is there will be an afternoon session with a governance coach. This person comes very highly recommended, has done successful work with other community colleges, big community colleges around the country. I think it's a great refresher to really relook at how we perceive our roles and as trustees. I think there's value for anybody who'd like to attend. I will be there. I assume at least Donna will be.
I have registered
as well. So, yay, right. So just encourage you with that. I think it's the most fundamental thing we do. And like any good athletes, you have to exercise those muscles periodically to really fine tune them. The other piece I would just say is that NYCCT did last week testified at the joint Ways and Means and Higher Education Committee meetings in Albany. And what I can say is that during the testimony by Chancellor King, there was an immense support in the form of questions from the senators and assembly folks on providing more operating funds for community colleges. Really encouraged with that. I think our message is really starting to take more hold. Later, I testified and also there was a lot of really good questions. So the end is that tomorrow we have a meeting with Ways and Means staff, which suggests that they're working on putting us in the one House bill, which is really the objective right there. And in a conversation with the chancellor today, he indicated that we're getting good support. He's looking at one aspect of what we're asking for, which is the 30 million to expand our programs. But and I had a subsequent conversation with him about the need for the for SUNY to hold us accountable for the ends, but let our residents determine the means to achieve the ends in workforce. And with Ian, I was very explicit about that. So some positive signs. I hope I can report some positive outcomes once the budget is passed.
Thank you. Now, student court.
Student court, I've got my report in the folder, and it actually has pictures just like that. So if you need, you don't have a real one, you've got the electronic one in the report.
Okay, thank you. Pretty early, but kind of a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
No second?
But I have another report from ACCT.
Oh, I am sorry.
That's okay. So, I brought you back a little fact sheet. Here's a little brochure here. My voice is real good. And there is a lot of information that is provided at the ACCT conferences. I don't think that it's necessary to put, sorry. Shut my phone off. To put this in the board packet, but perhaps we can put an advocacy file in the board portal. And we can put, if you would scan these documents in, Penny, this way everyone would have access to some of the information. This is about federal legislative priorities.
That's a great idea.
Some QR codes where you can check the latest information on things like Pell Grants. There's a Kids on Campus initiative that you might be interested in knowing about. There is a QR code to get a full paper on innovating workforce education with registered apprenticeships. There's also information about how to connect with ACCT nationally because we are members, you are members. And there's a calendar for the year of things that are happening at the national level. And then just the impact of federal education dollars on your campus. Very much. And actually, this form is asking us to fill out the number of recipients for Pell Grant, the average grant per student, total grant dollars distributed, and other federal programs that we participate in, so that this is an in-house document to help us tell our story when it comes to knowing what the statistics are, so that we can tell people what specifically is being impacted at our community college. So I'm not sure to whom this would go, so I'm giving it to President Dr. Nye. If you want to take a look at that and see if that could be of use to us in everywhere I go, at the national and the state level, everyone is saying you have to tell your stories better. You have to let us know very specifically how you're being impacted. And so this was a form that was developed by the, possibly by the membership.
This would, if we could, it's a tall order, but if we had this on the state level, we take this model and make this in New York State. This would be a great lobbying. This is incredible. The way it's laid out, and you could tell a million stories with this. And if we had that at the state level, that would be great for lobbying
Duly noted.
And I'd be glad to, I'd be glad to work on it, from behind the scenes,
A recommendation and a volunteer.
but I'm not going it alone.
Maybe on the communications committee.
Yeah, that's both the talk, for sure. But that's a great recommendation. NYCCT will strongly consider that. I think that's a great idea.
I believe that all of you have already taken the survey at the national level. They're doing research on community colleges. It's a separate program. Fred, did you have access to take the survey?
I don't think so.
I think this
What's the correct?
go
answer?
round.
Yes.
Survey, it's just asking for your insight as a trustee in community colleges. If you click on that QR code, they'll give you the survey, and it just is
Done.
adding to the body of
Yeah,
research.
absolutely. Will do.
And the last piece I would bring to you for consideration is, dear board chairs and college presidents, chancellors, please complete the CEO compensation survey. So this is to help establish a nationwide database of comprehensive CEO information for community colleges. And ACCT wants to offer a new service that would provide compensation data to boards who are looking for something, size, region data. I don't know if this is something that you would like us to do.
You already requested it, it's already been done.
It's done. All right. All right. And that is, I do have some remarks that I'll put together for a board report next month.
Okay, thank you. Try again. Motion to adjourn. And a second, you get that, Bonnie?
Just make it up.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Stand adjourned.